Welcome to the Fermynwoods Contemporary Art Podcast, guest curated and presented by Subterra. In search of solace in this precarious world, we emerge from ocular darkness. Rays of light pierce through the nocturnal, and in these twinkling soundscapes, we are reminded that we are part of something greater than ourselves. As we navigate these curious and luminous spaces, we will explore artist talks, discussions, and original commissioned sound art. Hello, and welcome back to another episode in our new Love and Light program. This time, we are joined by David John Scarborough. David is an artist, curator, and co-founder of modern painters New Decorators. He creates projects to think through his relationships with materials and places by considering personal history or public heritage. He makes exhibitions, books, videos, and music. If you are an avid Fermynwoods supporter, you might recognize David's name from the experimental video game Underlands that he created with Amma Dogby as part of our Xylophobia program. Underlands, which David has described as a sister project to the sound work he produced for this episode of the podcast, is a digital simulation of the dark woods above and below and the deep atavistic dreams and fears that emerge. The following sound work, called Dead Wood Burning, is aptly named as we gently shift our attentions from the dark woods of Xylophobia and Underlands, watching as the glowing embers burn, transforming into love and light. In Dead Wood Burning, David John Scarborough presents us with a musical tapestry grounded in the idea of Ubi Sunt, a rhetorical question asking, where are those that have gone before us? Deftly weaving together samples of music from Pete Seeger's anti-war song, Where Have All the Flowers Gone, to moments of David's own music, this is a poetic exploration of ecological breakdown, the long-lasting effects of folk tradition, and personal experiences of community, family, and fatherhood. So, without further ado, here is Dead Wood Burning, followed by a discussion with the artist.
Where's the horn that was blown? Where's the helm and the hauberk and the bright hair flowing? Where's the hand on the harpstring and the red fire glowing? Where's the spring and the harvest and the tall corn growing? They pass like rain on the mountain, like a wind in the meadow. The days have gone in the west behind the hills into shadow. Where are those men? Where is the horn shadow? Where is the house of the feast? Where is the hall's uproar? Where is that horse now? Where are those men? Where is the horn shadow? Where is the house of the feast? Where is the hall's uproar? Where now the horse and the rider? Where is the horn that was blowing? Where is the helm and the hauberk and the bright hair flowing? Where is the hand and the harpstring and the red fire glowing? Where is the spring and the harvest and the tall corn growing? They've passed like rain on the mountain, like a wind in the meadow. The days have gone in the west behind the hills into shadow. Shall gather the smoke of the dead wood burning, or behold the flowing years from the sea returning. Where now the horse and the rider? Where is the horn that was blown? Where is the helm and the hauberk and the bright hair flowing? Where is the hand on the harpstring and the red fire glowing? Where is the spring and the harvest and the tall corn growing? They've passed like rain on the mountain, like a wind in a meadow. The days have gone in the west behind the hills into shadow.
So sometimes in very productive ways, other in ways that are quite broken and fractured. And through those sounds, I've tried to understand some of the stories that are under the surface. I went to particular trees around the world again and again, and literally opened my ears to them to try to attend to the many sounds that echo in their wood, that blow through their leaves, that come from the animals that are associated with the tree. And that includes human conversation, part of the sounds of trees and the sounds of people around the tree. So sound, in a way, is the great revealing sense. Just as we can identify birds by sound,
Faces there are different, do not beguile you as you thought, and places laid in kind. September's end, you lost a friend, and in the end, a year just spent living September's end. We do not return to what was once a summer left in love. The table feeds enough. Now it's time to leave the field for far and you just spent leaving September's end.
Yeah, maybe a good place to start would be like talking about the Ubi Sunt, or like the rhetorical question that you that was like the first thing that you brought up to me when we initially spoke. So um maybe that's a good place to start.
Yeah, I think so. Um, I came across the phrase when I was researching the song "Where Have All the Flowers Gone" by Pete Seeger, and as I looked into the meaning, it's a Latin phrase meaning "Where have those have gone before?" So like a version of that at least. I kind of realised that it kind of referred to a lot of the thinking and song making and art making as well that I'd done in the previous 12 to 24 months. And that it kind of acted as a bit of a compass for how I might bring some of those ideas and sounds together for this project, Deadwood Burning. So that was the starting point, really, thinking about a rhetorical question. And I think within that rhetorical question, there's this idea of like something looping, because obviously a rhetorical question is a question that you ask yourself. So it can be sort of deadpan, but it can also be contemplative, I think, and through the looping, I don't see it as a static, fixed loop, but it's a loop into something else, or a way of working through something or understanding something, sitting with a question that maybe doesn't have an answer.
Yeah.
And yeah, the backdrop for that as well is these ideas of lament, creating a space for lamenting. And for me, I think there's like many layers and intertwining layers within that sort of space, headspace.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's like a really nice distinction with like the rhetorical question between like asking and then just like questioning. Because asking is like expecting an answer, but maybe with the rhetorical question, you can kind of just like sit in that not knowing, or not needing a kind of binary yes or no kind of response to something. So it's a really interesting rhetorical or like narrative device to use for that reason. And I really enjoyed how many different iterations of rhetorical questions there were, knowing the kind of foundation of Ubi Sunt, but then, questions like where have all the flowers gone? What was there? There were other questions within it that I can't think of right now, but yeah, just things that are not answerable and that maybe, yeah, like you said, have this sense of lament or longing in them. So then I was also curious to ask you what your feelings were about this kind of idea of lamenting, which is actually such a interesting choice of word, because it's also, thinking about Pete Seeger and like folk tradition and that kind of thing, and the lament being quite a traditional folk narrative as well.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a modern iteration of the old folk ballad in a way. Yeah, like just wondering how you saw that playing into the work.
When I first started the project, I was thinking about how would I make a sort of contemporary folk music, and I think that for me I feel like folk is quite a broad genre and it's quite generous in that way, and I feel like what I've made could be described as folk, not simply just because there's acoustic guitars played by hand and things like that, but because there's storytelling in there, and because it's not, I don't feel like folk music is necessarily about progress or innovation or even uniqueness. It's, in some ways obviously more around tradition, handing things down. There's still a sense of moving things forward in that. I feel like any rendition of a song or a standard needs to be made its own. And I think that's what some of the words, the lyrics that I'm singing on Dead Wood Burning kind of refer to. The song is in the hearing. It's almost like each generation needs to make these songs their own through the singing, the rearranging, working through these ideas in much the same way that the idea of Ubi Sunt and the rhetorical question kind of leads us to, really. And I feel like that's something that I've enjoyed sitting with as someone who spent a lot of time reading like music criticism and artists and bands that are celebrated for their uniqueness and kind of pushing boundaries in terms of like genre or sound. Folk music is almost, in some instances, can be quite the opposite of that, and I see that as a good thing, really.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting. I mean, I'm personally, that probably say this in every episode, really interested in folk music and that kind of thing. So to me, it was really interesting, and also kind of understanding the kind of history of Ubi Sunt as was it like a medieval rhetorical device, or
I
like,
think it was kind of used. I mean, I think probably any era where there's sort of a romanticism built into things, um, is probably there. But I think the original reference, at least on Wikipedia, is around the Book of Baruch, which is like a non-canonical biblical book. But it was definitely used a lot in medieval and Old English poetry. One other thing that kind of I sat with whilst putting this project together was also the negative connotations of some of this thinking as well, reflecting on a past that maybe never was, or fabricating a past to propagate certain ideologies, or certain myths around a nation or a culture. So I was kind of very aware of that, and I think, whether it's around like national identity or kind of like an expectation of where things should be ecologically, how you kind of like say, well, this is what this landscape should be like because this is what it was like when I was a child, or this is what it was like 100 years ago. Who gets to decide that? And so I don't think these things are simple, and I think it's not, Ubi Sunt is not straightforwardly pure thing. It can be used for ill means as well to fabricate a path, and to build a certain kind of future, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's always a really kind of tricky space to work in, is like when you're using maybe it's like archival material or historical kind of aesthetics, and you're trying to make sure that the work doesn't come across as like overly nostalgic, or, like you said, kind of propaganda almost for like the idea of nation or that kind of thing. But I think that the work certainly didn't kind of fit into that at all. I didn't find that at all. If anything, it was like a kind of this, that what you said about kind of this like lament with like ecological collapse, but also this kind of existing in this precarious world, and how that feels. And in the kind of response that you did to some of the thoughts I had, where you talked about balancing like ecological collapse with more personal experience, I think like that's really, really interesting. Did you find that difficult to do, thinking about like fatherhood, or about generational kind of memory and that kind of thing, with ecological collapse? Or like, it must be difficult to do because they're so different, and one is so global and one is so like personal. I thought it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on how you kind of approached that.
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of like the idea of like the general and the specific, I think that's something in which like folk traditions and sort of like myth making do well, is that they're generous enough to accommodate many people, but specific enough to articulate shared experiences. And I suppose that's the thing of like experiences that are quite generally universal, such as grief. So I didn't find it particularly hard to sort of balance the two. And I guess a lot of the initial making before putting Deadwood Burning together, or being commissioned to make it, the things that I was making were not made self-consciously, and were not made for a particular purpose other than to work through the various situations that I found myself in. Which I guess was coming out of the pandemic, and kind of having an autumn, attending several funerals, and within that also becoming a father as well, and trying to put these things together, or work out what had been changed, what had changed, what had been lost. So they are very personal to me, and it's been a way of me processing those moments. But they've come to have more and other meanings as I've lived with the songs more and played them. And they're also part of a larger body of work that I'm working with some other musicians, as Kiln House, the other kind of project that I run. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, it didn't feel too hard to balance those two things, and I wasn't necessarily conscious of it in doing it.
Yeah. And like, especially when I realized that at the end the choir was your mum singing as part of that, you know, the idea of generation and of like community and of like the common good was like really like lovely and clear. So it was, I thought that kind of idea of the folk oral history, oral tradition, you know, passing down through generations was like a really lovely way of thinking about something that is very scary and that we are all very anxious about, and feel completely uncertain about futures, and you know, so I think it was a really nice approach, and something I haven't really seen in that specific way. I mean, like it was I don't know if it was because I was thinking about these sort of medieval, or I don't know, folk historical images anyway, but it felt like a kind of like a audio version or an acoustic version of like an illuminated manuscript or something. You know, like some kind of relic that had just like emerged or was being transmitted from somewhere other. Especially the kind of reverb or the echo on a lot of the singing, I felt like quite haunting, because it was like it was coming from another place or another time, and we were somehow maybe almost at times it felt like a little bit voyeuristic being able to hear it, or like I don't know, like I was kind of like surreptitiously kind of accessing it. So yeah, I thought it was really amazing that you were able to achieve that through like editing samples of music, and I assume singing as well yourself.
Yeah.
I think I thought at the end, was it the September?
Well, I think there's 3 different songs within there that I sing on. There's a collection of voices, I think.
Yeah, it is like a chorus in itself.
Yeah, there's me singing. There's my my friend Claire Leshy singing also, the female vocalist. But then you also have Pete Seeger, and the vocals on that vocal manipulation was done by a friend who's also an artist, Taylor Fisher, who his practice thinks a lot about dubbing and the history of dub. So he's kind of pulling on those reference points. For me, I was much thinking about like double tracked vocals and artists like Elliott Smith and things like that. Also, some of these like production techniques I have to do so that I can kind of sit with my own voice and not be too kind of consumed by kind of like self-criticism. But I felt like it was the right thing to do to have my own voice in it, and kind of feel like singing is like almost like the auditory version of drawing. You kind of like can't escape yourself with it, and I think there's something kind of like challenging to the self about that, but also felt like important in terms of like me owning what's in there in the song. But then there's there's lots of other samples. My friend Joshua Jones does the reading in the first sort of section, which brings together elements of kind of poem that's in The Lord of the Rings, which itself is based on an old English poem called The Wanderer. You've got my mum singing as part of her community choir, which is the song that they're singing, a sort of lullaby called Slumber My Darling. And then there's other kind of excerpts from interviews and talks. So there's a bit of some thoughts from Curator Kent, Robert McFarlane, and David Haskell, which are all kind of around, I suppose, ecology, our kind of relationship with the world, and kind of human practices within that, such as burial, which is obviously kind of perhaps about as intimate as you can be with kind of more than human. I suppose I haven't given that a lot of thought, but it seems like, in the moment, it seems like perhaps that might be true. So yeah, and then also just to give full credit as well, my friend Isaac Robinson plays like electric guitar across the whole thing. It provides like a real kind of emotional core to a lot of the songs and a lot of texture. So yeah, I'm really grateful to all of those individuals for being a part of the project. Yeah.
It's a whole host of kind of collaborators, even the people who weren't actually there, you know what I mean? How did you find, like, if it's not, giving too much away, how did you find the editing process? Was it overwhelming having all this material? Because there's so much layered within it. It's like, was it difficult to like collage it, or did you find that it kind of naturally kind of flowed into kind of a narrative?
Yeah, I think it was probably both, depending on what mood I was in and where my mental space was at on any given day. At times it felt quite like lonely putting it together, and kind of a lot of questioning. Was it going to actually work? It's kind of in some ways a bit of a new way of working for me, and I'm kind of always not sure about trying to get the balance between sung songs and kind of instrumental passages right, as well as kind of combining stuff that is very sample heavy with stuff that is more using original materials. So I think there was a sense in which there was already a flow to what I was doing, which was already kind of happening through songwriting I was doing or had done, and developing the game Underlands with Emma Dogby that was part of the Dialogovia program. So there was already a flow of things. I guess it was just not knowing where that would necessarily lead, and also not wanting to be too prescriptive about it. So there were some sort of kind of like guiding lights or guiding ideas through it, like the Ubi Sunt kind of theme. But I always felt like when putting it together that it should be more about how it made me feel, how it made others feel, than necessarily like, a kind of concrete idea or concept. I think that for me is the value or kind of power in music, is that it can kind of bring out emotions that perhaps other mediums have to work a little bit harder to do.
Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? The girls have picked them, every one. Oh, when will you ever learn? Oh, when will you ever learn? Where have all the flowers gone?
I think the main thing is probably already communicated, but the main thing that I felt like was important was that as much as I feel like there is still more to be made, I don't necessarily personally still want to sit in this space of lament, and I think it's about making room for what emerges out of that space as well, and being attentive to that. I think when it stops being productive or reproductive is when it does get too stuck on the past or nostalgia, but there's got to be room for mourning what's been lost, but also being aware that something new is and will emerge. So I think hopefully that's communicated in some way through the sound itself, that it doesn't remain static. Kind of invitation to move forward as well as remember what's gone.
Yeah. And especially with the ending kind of coming to like a kind of climax with the choir sound, it certainly felt very hopeful, if that's the right word. I don't know, at the end, you know, because it's like an engagement with like the sacred or with the heavenly in a way. And even I think the question, where have all the flowers gone, I don't think that that's a wholly negative question either, because you're still living in the future or the present in order to be able to ask that question. And you still have to make a life in a world where, let's say, there are no flowers. Hopefully that won't happen. But I think that, you know, the things that we spoke about with community and support systems and friendships, those are the things that allow us to exist in times when things are uncertain or do feel dark. So actually, I think that where have all the flowers gone, it also leaves space for a future where we find alternatives, as well as, you know, just lamenting the loss of something. And I think that was why that question was such a great kind of center point, because it leaves so much room for possibility and for mystery as well.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting as well that it's not asking why have all the flowers gone.
Yeah.
You know, it's not even necessarily holding people to, or anybody to account, which is again quite different from the general, which does obviously, there's, you know, it's necessary in terms of thinking about justice and injustice. But for that song, that's not what it's asking. It's not what it's asking of the listener. And there's a sense in which we might not know the why, but we do actually know the where have all the flowers gone. We know the answer to that question. And in the context of that song as well, speaking about the Vietnam War, the idea of like picking flowers to lay on a grave or a tombstone, or to remember a fallen soldier, I suppose, if the body wasn't returned.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that not blaming anyone is why the work doesn't seem like nostalgic or, you know, like longing for a past that some people experienced or whatever. It's just kind of like, yeah, just interrogating or questioning. And if they have gone somewhere, that means that maybe they still exist and we just have to find them.
Yeah, I don't know, there's different, yeah, I guess there's different things to be hopeful for, but I guess for me it's like looking around immediately at what's to hand and what is now, rather than, you know, and seeing what can be made out of that, you know, rather than trying to work backwards from an imagined future, perhaps. Just a different way of thinking about the future, or creating a future, I suppose.
Finally, David has asked me to respond to his sound work by choosing a text which I felt related in some way to the work he produced. I have chosen an extract from Snejanka Mihailova's text, Acoustic Thought, a close reading of the Gospel of Thomas. Access to the immortal is given in repetition. From the cycle of death and life translated into language, to a language translated into the life of the spirit, and in that manner making a transition from one code, genetic or logical, to another. To look on this relation as a possibility of cognition is what the Gnostics call a living knowledge, a fire to be carried, or a shining light within a person of light, which, if it does not shine, it is dark. In the Gospel of Thomas, living knowledge coincides with oblivion. It is a remembrance without narrative, and the cognitive functions from the perception of colors to dreaming, from desire to its impossible fulfillment, are ways of knowing in the mode of the already known. You can find more from David John Scarborough at his website, cargocollective.com/David John Scarborough, and his Instagram at David John Scarborough. Accompanying images for this episode are at our website, and there are links to all of this in the episode description, as always. Listeners on Spotify are able to experience an accompanying video to this episode by artist Sapphire Goss. And for listeners on other platforms, you can find Sapphire's work on our website, and all of this will also be included in the episode description. Sapphire Goss is an artist who works with moving image, photography, and other lens-based methods. Using obsolete technologies, she creates chimerical imagery using unexpected materials, looping and processing to make an analog uncanny, grainy, shimmering, otherworldly bursts of light and emotion that are both moving and mysterious. Thank you for listening to the Fermynwoods Contemporary Art Podcast. If you enjoy our podcast, please make sure to positively rate, review, and subscribe. It helps other people find the podcast, and it makes us feel good about ourselves. This episode has been curated by Subterra and presented by me, Marie Chantal Hamrock, and edited by Astrid Bjorklund. Love and Light is Fermynwoods Contemporary Art's new thematic program. Visit fermynwoods.org for more information on this program and to sign up to our monthly email newsletter. Follow us at Fermynwoods on X or Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And make sure to check out myself and Astrid as Subterra at Subterrestrials on Instagram. Thank you for listening. With love and light, Marie and Astrid.